Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And we've got a few things just before we get into this week's episode topic, and it's my turn this week, but I'm not going to reveal it at this juncture. I am going to do, at the very beginning of this episode, maybe this is a No Name Music Cast first, given the fact that most people know I'm not really a fan of the medium of film, I am going to do a very quick Ghostbusters Afterlife film review. Now, Joy, I take it you're aware of this.
I am, and I saw some Instagram posts from you and Hannah, so I have an idea of maybe what you're going to say. Okay.
Now, I should ask, before I go into it, I should ask, are you a fan of Ghostbusters in general?
Yes. I'm not, I wouldn't say I'm a super fan, but I feel like I would put you more of the super fan, right? But I've watched plenty of them, and I like them.
Okay, so obviously there was Ghostbusters 1, which was in 1984, and I think the sequel, Ghostbusters 2, I think that was 88, 89, something like that. The first one, as previously discussed, is the definitive article. Ghostbusters 2 is... apparently even Bill Murray was not that much into it when he was filming it.
Which kind of shows on screen, I think.
It does, and the plot's a bit wishy-washy, and it's that whole thing with the Statue of Liberty walking across the Hudson, and it's not good. The first one is what you want. But then, in 2016, they came out with a reboot, all-female reboot, called Ghostbusters Answer the Call. Mm-hmm. Now, have you ever seen that?
Yes.
And what did you think of that?
It was okay. There were parts of it that were funny, but it also did that kind of classic show you all the funny parts in every trailer. So it didn't become that funny when I watched it, and the story plot was a little choppy. I wasn't any better than any of the others, but I'm not it wasn't a great movie. It was just okay for me.
Yeah, I've never seen it. I've only ever seen trailers and other clips of it. And I'm not one of these people that are like, oh no, it's a female thing and it's terrible. No, it's just the casting decision on this film is irrelevant. I just feel it was a remake that didn't need to be made. Yeah,
I mean, like I said, parts of it were funny. Most of the funny parts you got from the trailer, and the rest was just kind of filler. Wasn't like anything that I'd go out of my way to watch again.
And it seems to be that the fan community, at least the progressive fan community, were of the same opinion. They were like, yeah, casting whatever, but you've remade something great, and it's not as good as the original.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Okay, so Ghostbusters Afterlife. I'm not going to spoil the plot because I'm sure some of our listeners have yet to see it, but it follows the Star Wars reboot playbook in so much as it has some of the original cast in it. It follows some of the original story to some degree, and yet it also introduces new characters and new scenarios. And I can't wait for it to come out on, as they say, home video. I can't wait to get the VHS tape of it.
Lord.
Because as I was watching it in the cinema, there's little split second stuff of that's that, and this
little
is
Easter eggs.
Yeah, and there's so many in it. And Adam Savage from the Mythbusters visited the set, and there's a video up on YouTube of him visiting one of the sets in it, and they're going through all those little things that are in it. And I was like, oh, look at that! It's one of them, and it's one of them, and it's one of them, and one of them. So I can't wait to do it, but I will say I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm not one to watch too many films, as you know, and certainly new films is not something that I enjoy. I like the first Star Wars remake, and then when they went down the line with the other ones, it kind of lost the plot, and I completely lost interest in it. But I felt with this, they did it for the fans. And it sort of, as I said, it's good. And it calls back to the old film, but at the same time, it's its own thing. So my scoring out of 5 would be a solid 4.5 stars out of 5. I didn't walk out of it thinking, wow, that's the best thing I've ever seen. But I enjoyed it, and I think it ticked all the boxes I was expecting.
It's a pretty good score, Tim.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good score.
There we go. So that may be the one and only ever vague film review that we ever do, because I don't see myself going to any more films anytime soon. The last film I saw before that was Elton John's Rocket Man, and then the one before that was the Bohemian Rhapsody film.
Both were great, though.
Yeah, they both were. And in fact, I would say that the Elton John Rocket Man was significantly better than Bohemian Rhapsody. However, my biases of loving Queen probably made me enjoy the Queen film more. But I think if you objectively look at the two, I think Rocket Man was a better piece.
For me, Rocket Man was better.
Yeah, and as I said, I like that. I saw Rocket Man once in the theater, and I saw the Queen film 3 times.
I mean, that's fair. And I mean, I liked both of them. Don't get me wrong. I just thought, and like the artistry and the way they filmed it and like the camera works and stuff like that were so interesting in Rocket Man. And I don't know that they had that as much in Bohemian Rhapsody, where he's more just like tell a story. So I think that kind of made it different. Artistically wise, I liked Rocket Man better.
Yeah, and plus Rocket Man was also sort of a semi-musical because it had those musical set pieces and stuff like that. And
the setup was nice.
Yeah, and like you say, the Queen film was basically just a
biopic.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Not to insult them, and I mean that, but both of them were good. It's just if I were going to watch another one again, I'd probably watch Rocket Man first.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So I have another thing for you. I've got many vaguely music related things for you. So the saga of the ABBA Voyage box set has come to its conclusion today. So as many of you know, I ordered the ABBA Voyage album in the deluxe box set edition, and it came 2 weeks after release date. I think it was over 2 weeks after release date. So the hysteria of the new album coming out was already lost because everyone was going, yeah, this is the best thing ever, and I love ABBA, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, where's my box set coming? Come on, ABBA, sort it out. So anyway, it comes, and it's this deluxe box set was incredibly cheaply made, and it was crushed, and it was torn. And I was a little disappointed. So I complained to ABBA. I said, Benny, Bjorn, Annie Fried, Agnetha.
I'm like 7th removed from your band, so you should listen to me,
Yeah, I
really.
effectively played in your band back in the day. What's going on? Why are you sending me substandard product? And they emailed me back, and they said, you will be refunded. And today, they sent me my money back, my almost $30 I paid for this box set, and they never asked for the product back.
Wow. Well, at least they made it right, Tim.
They did make it right, and then I ordered a regular copy from Amazon, which turned up today. So this is the end of the ABBA voyage for me.
I was saying, they took you on a voyage.
Exactly. And I have it on good authority that this deluxe box set, where the box is a bit crushed, may be being gifted to a podcast host who I do a podcast with, at least once a week, sometimes twice a week.
So he sounds very lucky.
And that person said to me, yeah, I'd love to have that box set, and I don't really mind that the corner's crushed. So
no. There we go.
There we are. Okay. So that's just a couple of, topics I had swirling around in my mind that I wanted to bring to the to the listeners of our podcast. So we have been doing Tip of the Day, and we have yet to receive a jingle for Tip of the Day, Phil. And so I'm handing this one over to Joy to give me her tip of the day.
Mine it's kind of random, but it's the first thing that came to mind when I was thinking of tips of the day. And probably because I made spaghetti sauce the other day. If you tend to suffer from like acid reflux or things like that when you're making like a spaghetti sauce, they recommend putting sugar in because it, affects the alkaline levels or whatever and reduces the pHa. But there's actually something better you can do. Sugar, some people don't like the way I don't like adding sugar to my pasta sauce. I don't like the flavor change. What you can actually add is baking soda. So baking soda does it without causing that sugar flavor, and it actually reduces the pH better. There's my tip.
Would you look at that? And in fact, baking soda has multiple uses. I can extrapolate the baking soda thing. If you have like a metal cup that you drink tea or coffee out of, and it stains the inside, because I actually have a SpaceX flask at work, which I put my hot tea in, and over time the tanning in the tea stains the metal. So if you fill it up with Yeah, if you fill it up with hot water and put a bit of baking soda in there and leave it overnight, it does actually clean it off.
It can also help if you're trying to, if you've like box dyed your hair, or you have like certain colors of dye in hair are really hard to get out, or if your hair is really porous and it takes the color. If you're trying to, if you don't want to bleach immediately, because, you know, bleaching is really harsh on the hair. Some people will mix like baking soda. I want to say like lime or lemon. It's something with like a vitamin C. So baking soda and vitamin C, there's vitamin C caplets too. And it can help remove color from your hair.
I didn't know that. I have done hair colorant training, believe it or not. I used to work at Superdrug, and for you bingo card people out there, guess where that was? That was in Hounslow. And I had once sat through, I think it was a couple of trainings on hair colorant, so I'm aware of like wash in, wash out, semi-permanent, fully permanent, bleaching.
Demi-permanent.
Yeah, I know all that stuff. I mean, I'm fully hair colorant trained.
Well, here you go, Tim. Here's something we have slightly in common. Did you know that I went to cosmetology school and was a cosmetologist in a previous life?
I did not know that. Would you look at that?
Never used it for anything because it's too expensive and I made no money, and then I went to college. But I mostly did nails, but I had to take some classes in because like I can do like full acrylic nail sets and stuff. I've done it all myself plenty. And then I took some classes in color and some classes in cutting. And yeah, technically, I was a licensed cosmetologist once.
That's fantastic. I was licensed in nothing other than I saw a VHS video in the break room on 2 occasions, and then supposedly was told to make sure people bought more hair colorant.
You're the reason why cosmetologists are always doing color corrections.
Well, what can I say? I worked in a place that was like CVS, and they did various trainings, but for some reason the hair colorant one sticks out of my brain, and I don't know why.
Because it's random. All right, what's your tip, Sam?
Okay, my tip of the day, and this is actually incredibly topical of about 25 minutes ago. So my tip of the day is, if you live in a community that has an HOA, and for our friends in England, an HOA is a homeowners association, and it's like a service charge that you pay. So it's very common in the United States that if you live in a townhouse, which is like a terrace house, or if you live in a condo, like flats, you know, that kind of thing, that you will have an HOA. And typically what they're doing is they're cutting your grass, they're clearing away snow and ice. Sometimes they'll fix the roof if that's part of your thing, or sometimes they'll fix the outside lights in the community and that kind of stuff. So where we live has that. So my tip of the day is, if you live in a community like that and it has an HOA, and you somehow went to the meeting once 3 years ago just because you was curious, and then they begged you to join the HOA board because no one wanted to do it, and then you sort of went, oh, okay, then all right, I'll do it, and then get dragged into these meetings, you will find out that there's typically one person who's really excited about it and spends all day researching solar lights and drainage, and has some kind of hookup with the local council who can reroute water and stuff like that. And then the net result of these meetings is that whatever he or she has decided will probably happen anyway. And then the guy,
no one else cares.
Yeah, and then whoever from the management company is over this will then probably tell you need to put the dues up because fiscal year 2025 you'll be so much in debt, and then you'll put the dues up, and then you just have the next meeting the next time. So my tip of the day is that if you're in an HOA, just accept the fact that the dues are going to go up every year and just don't get involved in it.
Well, to be fair, some HOA, you're lucky because at least it doesn't sound like you have that one lady who spends all her time telling people what stone animal type statue they can put in their front yard or something.
No, I mean, it must be said that to that degree, we don't have anyone like that.
A lot of HOAs do, though.
Yeah, because I know, like if you live in a particularly upscale community, that they'll make sure that your grass is a certain length, and there's lots of
housing values.
Yeah, and you can't park your car on the road, and you can't this, and it's
Tim's night license plate would have to be removed. It doesn't fit the aesthetic.
Exactly that kind of stuff, and you can't illuminate your tree outside your house, and
See, I have a Buddha statue in my garden, and then I have a little owl and have a little frog and a couple other statues. They would have booted me out. Buddha would have definitely got the boot.
I think in our community you can't have flags. I think you can have an American flag, like if you have a sports team flag or some kind of flag, maybe
So
with
some turf war that's happened in the past. So they had to ban them.
like if you have a political flag or if you have some kind of I don't know, associational type thing, you're not allowed to put that up. But I think that's about the only thing, and nobody seems to really care about that too much. But yeah, that's my tip. If you end up in that world, please just completely steer clear of it, because that's what's going to happen.
Sounds like when you're at meetings at work too. Like everybody else is ready to get off the call, and there's one person who's dying to hold you hostage. Anyway, all right, Tim, on to the topic.
On to the topic. Okay, so this week I decided to. I've been looking through the other episodes that we've done. It's my pick, and there seems to be a trend of me embracing music from, well, you know. Let's have a look. Oh, about 35 years ago, from that magical 80s decade. So I thought I would buck the trend a little bit. And this week, I thought I would reach back all the way to the early 2000s and, you know, almost up to the current.
The early aughts.
Yeah. And I thought this week I would discuss the music of Katy Perry.
Oh, good choice.
So I'm not a big fan of contemporary pop music, really. However, the music of Katy Perry resonates with me. Not so much her later stuff. And there's a couple of her later albums which I'll come on to, which in fact I'm not even really familiar with at all. But certainly from the beginning of her career all the way up to 2015, that kind of time. I don't know. I feel it's very well written, very well produced pop music.
She also, though, I don't know how much you know about her story. Her parents were uberly religious, and she was kind of a little bit of a wild child. But like, if you look at old school Katy Perry, when she used to perform, let's say open mic nights or something like that, she's very talented. Like it would just be her guitar. It was very simple. You could tell that she had a real love for that side of the music. So watching early Katy Perry videos are quite interesting compared to what you see of her now.
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly, I think I first became aware of her when she was performing on those Warped tours with her band.
I used to go to Warped Tour back in the day.
Did you ever see Katy Perry?
She was never at any of the ones that I went to. Mine was always just like Good Charlotte, Bowling for Soup, all those early pop bands. But I mean, I don't know why. Maybe I just missed the tour she was on. But I definitely remember her headlining some of them.
Okay, so I'm just going to some quick Perry facts. Her name is not Perry. Her name is Catherine Elizabeth Hudson. Apparently, Perry is her mother's maiden name, and she decided to adopt that as a stage name. She's born on October 25th, 1984. Like you say, she sang in church during her childhood, and she tried to pursue a career in gospel music as a teenager, and then that didn't really work out too well. She signed a record deal, and then she put out a debut studio album that was called Katy Hudson in 2001, and it was not successful at all. I have a copy of this album, and it sounds like early 2000s pop music, but with not a great deal of direction involved. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
No, but I kind of get what you're kind of alluding to. Yeah,
So she was lucky that she had a second shot, because a lot of artists don't get a second shot of this stuff. You know, you put out your debut album, and especially these days when there doesn't seem to be as much money in investing in artists, it's like you're in, you're out, you're done. And she would have gone off to be just completely obscure. But later on, she started working with Glenn Ballard. She worked with a number of producers initially, but Glenn Ballard was one of the main ones. And Glenn Ballard, as you know, was responsible with Alanis Morissette for Jagged Little Pill.
Yeah, I think we even talked about him once before on another episode.
Exactly. So from there, she released the album Teenage Dream, and we're gonna come through. Well, actually, it was One of the Boys, and then it was Teenage Dream. One of the Boys was the first album that she came with. Sorry, I got mixed up a little bit there. Anyhow, so she's had a very popular career, and apparently all of her albums have surpassed 1 billion streams on Spotify.
That doesn't surprise me. She's one of those people that when she puts out a song and it's really popular, it's all you hear for the next 70 years. How many times have we heard, do you ever feel like a plastic bag blowing through the wind?
And also about Katy Perry, one other interesting thing is that she performed at the Super Bowl halftime show. Have you seen that?
Yes, Left Shark. The only part that mattered, because that would have been me on stage. I guarantee you that it would have held over my head for the next 6 years. And then, but the only thing that would have been different for me is somehow I would have fell over at the end if I was a Left Shark.
Well, I remember I actually tuned into that Super Bowl to specifically watch Katy Perry. Yeah. And the funny thing is like all the Twitter noise that was going on at the same time. And people were saying, what's this annoying football match getting in the way of my Katy Perry concert?
Well, did you ever hear what Left Shark had to say about it?
No.
As you can imagine, he was one of her backup dancers, and I think at some point he comes out not in the shark costume, but he couldn't hear in the big shark costume, something about he couldn't hear the music. So he was, a few beats off the entire time or whatever. And he's like, I'm sorry, I was wearing a giant shark costume. Give me a break here.
But wouldn't you think, there is a whole behind the scenes documentary about the Katy Perry halftime concert. And I don't. Have you ever seen that too? Yeah.
It seems like something I would have seen, but I don't know off the top of my head. I've watched a few documentaries on her, but I think one was more of her teenage dream, like actual concert tours, the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah. Well, there's one, I think it was on HBO or something like that, but it goes through the whole of that Super Bowl thing, from early rehearsals to the music and all the production and all that kind of stuff. It's actually pretty, even if you don't like Katy Perry, it's pretty interesting to see the amount of time and effort that goes into like a 13-minute show.
Yeah.
Because it always strikes me, like with the Super Bowl, how like you've got a football match and then they have like 3 minutes or something while a commercial break is running to set this thing up. And of course, everything has to be perfect. The lights have to be perfect. The sound has to be perfect. Every piece of staging has to be in the right place. And then, they come back from the commercial and boom, it starts. And they rehearse it, if not dozens, hundreds of times to get it exactly right.
Yeah. I can only imagine though. And then like stadium shows, sound is so, we've talked about like one of the problems is like whenever you're in a big like stadium, how the sound can revert back at you and stuff. And you get that kind of weird kind of echoey type thing going on and different things like that. Mm-hmm. So I can't imagine having to take all that into account. Also, another thing though, what other thing Left Shark said was it wasn't set choreography, Tim. It was freestyle choreography. So they were allowed to embody their own characters.
Exactly.
Left Shark's thought that's what he just had to say.
Left Shark was feeling loose and free that day. He was feeling the vibe of the Super Bowl and he was just...
Anyway.
In fact, on my guitar case, I have a Left Shark sticker.
I think Left Shark really was the that of all all the we could talk about that could be an episode, all the weird Super Bowl incidences over the years with halftime shows because there's tons of them.
Oh,
but I'll write that down in a future episode, maybe come January or something. But yeah, Left Shark took the cake on that. But her halftime show was quite good, and she was one of the ones that I think sound wise had good sound because there's some of them that the sound is not great.
Yeah, I think typically with the Super Bowl halftime shows, she's live singing, and a lot of them do live sing. But I think the backing track is done to a track, sadly. And I think a lot of that comes down to just the logistics of mixing a live band.
Wasn't it the Red Hot Chili Peppers that didn't like that they like it was obvious that like Flea and others weren't actually playing? Was that the Red Hot Chili Peppers?
I think it was. Wasn't that with...
There was another person who was singing with them. I
can't remember, but I know the performance that you that you speak of. There's also when Bruce Springsteen did it. I think the E Street Band, I think they weren't playing. I think it was just done to a track. But Bruce was singing live, and there's a great scene where Bruce decides to slide along the stage on his knees, and he slides and he slides and he slides, and he bashes into a mic stand, creating what we would say on this PG podcast as a gentleman's injury. And the look on his face of pain, sheer immediate pain, but at the same time being a professional and knowing there's like 1.2 billion people watching him or something, it's worth it just for that look of his face.
Yeah, so I Googled it. The Red Hot is Bruno Mars. That's who. And the Hits Hooligan band they played. But yeah, that's the one that everybody was like, if you look, most of the time, generally artists can do a good job at like miming their instruments. But like Flea specifically, when they like fly, when they zoom in, it's like his fingers aren't even on the strings. It's just really bad.
Sure. I mean, to some degree, I get that because you're a live musician and you play live and that's what you do. But when you sign up to do the Super Bowl, whether you know, that is the gig. It's like, okay, you're going to have all this exposure. You're going to be this, you know, you're promoting whatever record, you know, that's great. However, Mr. Flea, this is the deal. If you want to sign up to this, this is how it works. There's no point making a statement with this. And
I am going to come to I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second. I understand musicians and wanting to perform live, but there are times where it could be like we were just talking about all that goes into making that studio sound the way it's supposed to, or that stadium. And there are times where for the audience, for reasons of the audience and that many people watching, you have to use a backing track or it's just going to sound terrible. There are times when backing tracks or even partial backing tracks and things of that nature are important to make the sound you want to make. And the Super Bowl is one of those times that I get it. It could be annoying and you want to play live. I understand, but I understand why they would do that too.
Yeah, and I can even tell you, even at this level, I mean, I've done this. I'm not going to tell you which videos it's on, but I've done this. So I have a bunch of videos out online which I recorded over the lockdown period with various people. All of the guitar you hear on those tracks is me, played by me live, or wasn't they live, but you know, recorded by me into the computer. I'm not using any backing tracks or anything. If there's a guitar on it, that's me playing it. However, when you make these little videos that you see, it is easier from an editing perspective to record your stuff into your computer, and then when you record the video, you put your fingers on the guitar as if you're playing it, but in fact you're playing along to what you've already recorded, and then you mute the sound off the video and then use your pre-recorded audio.
I mean, that makes complete sense, and that's kind of, I imagine, really how most things are done like that. Yeah,
and anytime you see like even at local band level that may have put together a lockdown video, 99 times out of 100, that's how it's done. Because it's just from an editing perspective, it's easier to have the audio in the can and then record the video piece.
And if you're going to send the other person a click track for them to perform to, that's the audio you want to go with whatever they're, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's say Tim sends me a guitar track and it's to a click track so I can sing to it. Well, he's going to want to layer that, and he doesn't want to play new music that I've already sang over because I've already picked up on the nuances I want to go with that guitar or whatever. So from that perspective, if you're collaborating, it makes sense too.
Yeah, I mean, of course, there are instances where you would be performing live in that video, and if it was a live performance, of course, that's how it's done. But kind of these set piece videos, I mean, like I can reveal this now. The Freebird video that I made with Rough Justice, it's 50-50. All the solos that I do at the end when I'm trading off with Mike, the video is exactly what I played. That's me completely straight off. But there's some bits at the beginning where I'm just playing rhythm and I'm on the video. My fingers are in the right place. I previously played it, but from an editing perspective, it was easier to do it like that.
Yeah, I mean, That makes general sense. And I mean, from an audience's standpoint, if you're at a big concert, you kind of want to have a good show, especially if you're paid however much it costs to go to the Super Bowl, Tim. I don't want to hear, you know what I mean, bad guitar because he can't hear drummer over here and vocals screeching at me if we can avoid it. If I just spent hundreds upon hundreds of dollars to go to the Super Bowl halftime show.
Exactly. But there you go. But just to wrap up on the as we almost leave this video editing Super Bowl topic, I just want to say one thing that's interesting about the Super Bowl halftime performance for Katy Perry. So she had Lenny Kravitz and Missy Elliott as special guests on that. Yes. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know who Missy Elliott was.
Oh, that breaks my heart. I love Missy Elliott.
I said to Hannah, I said, "Who's that?" She says, "Missy Elliott." I said, "I don't know who that is."
It doesn't surprise me.
Anyhow, but the interesting thing is that Katy Perry's halftime performance had 118.5 million viewers. The football game itself had 114.4 million viewers. She had more viewers than the actual football game.
I don't care to watch the whole. I sometimes will put it on and it'll play in the background because I like the commercials, but the new commercials or whatever. But I've tuned into just the halftime show plenty of times before. Last year, Shakira and J-Lo, I just tuned in for just the halftime show.
Yeah, I think it was the first year I lived in the United States. I decided. I mean, I don't really like sport at all. It's not anything that interests me. But for the first year I lived here, I thought, you know what, I'm buying into the American dream. So the Super Bowl came on. I had my can of pissy like beer, and I'm ready to go with the Super Bowl. And I got about 25 minutes into it. And I said to Hannah, I'm just going to turn this off. I have no interest in this whatsoever.
Well, to be fair, I think part of the reason people are watching is they don't care about the football. There's just so many pop culture things that happen. Like the year Beyonce was in the halftime show and the lights went out during the stadium halfway through the Super Bowl, and I had to put it on pause because they had no power. We could get into the whole Justin Timberlake. Well, we're not going to PG, but that did happen. There's just been so many pop culture things. And I think, was it a Super Bowl commercial that Pepsi did where Michael's hair caught fire?
I believe it was. I think that's correct.
There's so many pop culture things that have happened among the Super Bowls for years. And actually, I was doing, what was I? I was back, it used to not be. It was only once Pepsi started, I think, funding the Super Bowl halftime show that it was like an actual musician. It used to be like Minnie Mickey dancers, you know what I mean? And an orchestra band or something. So it's only been in the last, probably since maybe the early 90s that it's been that way.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think one of us needs to do a Super Bowl halftime show wrap up of all this stuff that's gone on. Because like you say, there's been so many pop culture references that have come from that. Mm-hmm. Even like the famous 1984 Apple commercial was a Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah, there's lots of stuff. And I mean, it's just, that's why it's so much of a staple in American culture. I think, there's some people who are diehards about the football, but then there's just other people here to learn about all that other stuff.
Exactly. Okay. So what I've done is I've pulled out 10 or so Katy Perry songs, which ones that I like. That's pretty much my criteria. I wasn't going for her greatest hits or most popular or most unique or anything. It was just, these are ones that I happen to like.
Fair.
It's my topic and I can do that if I want to. So we start off with her album of 2008, One of the Boys. And as we discussed, it's not her first album, it's her second album. It's her first album under the name of Katy Perry, not Catherine or Katie Hudson. So the first single she came out with is I've Kissed a Girl. Do you remember when that came out?
Okay, so this album, I have very distinct memories because I know I Kissed a Girl, Thinking of You, Hot and Cold, they're all on this album.
Yeah.
That was 2008. That was my senior year of high school. So I was in the height of pop culture at that point because I was 18 years old. And I Kissed a Girl was on every radio station on repeat for years. It felt like it ranked up there with Beyonce Single Ladies or something. Every time you turn it, and I remember you would turn on the radio, it was there. I'd be driving home in the car and my mom would be listening to it. It was everywhere.
Yeah, I have a distinct memory of this because at the time, Rough Justice, my fabled rock band that I was in with my dear friend Paul Summerton, Hog, I think he decided he wanted to not be in Rough Justice anymore, but he wanted to do a duo with me. Okay. So we had a Rough Justice acoustic duo for a while, which was fun while it lasted. And we used to do I Kissed a Girl and I Liked It. However, the kind of like edginess of that song title is lost when it's a male singer singing it and he is a larger-than-life character guy with a, goatee beard, etc.
Yeah, I could see that you're losing some nuance there for sure.
Exactly, but I have played that in an acoustic duo before.
I mean, it's a great pop hit, though.
It is, and apparently, when I was researching it, like the LGBTQ plus community didn't much care for the title or the message.
So it was because it was kind of like a bi curiosity type thing.
Yeah, it was kind of trivializing it, is I think what they said. It's like, if you're bi, if you're homosexual or whatever you're, however you lean, that's cool and that's fine. But it was like almost like trivializing that, and then they were not too into that.
Which I kind of see now. It's kind of like, now that I look back, I see how that could be, perceived that way. Mm-hmm. But what's interesting to me, and that song was like one of her first major singles, right? That was probably what put Katy Perry on the map. Is that song falls under. When I think of Katy Perry and I think about the musicality of her, it almost falls under the exact framework or setup or whatever you want to call it of a Madonna hit. Mm-hmm. Katy Perry does the pop hits that kind of, those early pop hits were very almost early Madonna kind of sounding. Mm-hmm. And so that's why it works so well, because it checks all those boxes.
Yeah, and I would say the whole of this album, One of the Boys, one thing I like about this album, this is probably my favorite album of hers. Mm-hmm. It sounds like a band. And in fact, I think it was one guy, the producer of this album, played most of the instruments on it.
Yeah.
But it is live drums, live guitar, live bass. And I think there are some samples and there are some keys and stuff like that on it. But it has more of a band sound to it. And it's more like what she was playing when she was doing the Warp tours.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I hear that too. But yeah, I will say that's a great hit. It was a good one to get your name known to, like to put out there as your first major kind of single. Even though she had the one album that was a flop, I think this was a good single to get out there.
Absolutely. But the song from this album, which is by far my favorite song of hers, and it's still my favorite song of hers, even all the rest of the work that she's released, and that would be Waking Up in Vegas.
I love Waking Up in Vegas.
Waking Up in Vegas is such a great song, and it's one of those songs I've had driving along in the car, and I've had to play it 3 times because it's so good.
And just the way it's from the beginning to the end, she's telling kind of this story, but the way it's structured that's probably what I'm getting at, is the way she structures her songs are so well. And that's why they become hits. But yeah, I've listened to Waking Up in Vegas probably 1 million times at least.
Yeah, and the thing I like about it the most is the video. The video is fantastic. It was filmed in Vegas. It was filmed at the Palms, and it was filmed in Fremont Street downtown.
Her in that big red outfit.
Yeah. And the video sort of shows the story where she comes in like with not a lot of money, and they win a load of money, and they live big, and then they lose it all, and they get thrown out of their suite. But it has Penn and Teller in it.
Yes, it does. Oh, you're right. Well, that's perfect for Vegas.
And I think it has Wayne Newton in it too. I think
she's good at doing that. I remember her last Friday night video. We were talking about Kitty G at work, and one of the millennials, even though I'm a millennial, but one of the youths didn't know who Kitty G was. And I said, he's the one in the last Friday night video that's playing the saxophone. And at the end, the guy from Glee goes, I can't believe your uncle's Kenny G. Outrageous. And he runs out the door. And I was like, that's Kenny G. And they would have never known who it was, but because he was in the video.
and I mean, this is skipping forward an album, but Last Friday Night is a great song.
Oh, I absolutely adore that song. And there's so much The video is great because they're literally in the party. We talked about the Rebecca Black who did the Friday song is in there playing the Just Dance with her. The guy from Glee is the one at the end, her parents, everything about that. That song is great, but the music video makes it even better. I listen to it on repeat too.
Yeah, it's a good song. So just to wrap up One of the Boys, I think you mentioned it earlier, is Hot and Cold.
Yeah. That one was all over the radio too. And to be fair, I will say of all the songs that I've heard the most, that might be one of the top ones. Like that's one that at one point I'm sure I reached burnout levels of because it was everywhere. It's a good song. I listen to it now, but I'm sure if we went back to 2009, I'd be like, maybe not.
Yeah. So sorry, Catherine, we're gonna have to turn this one off.
I know you're making millions upon millions, but I'm hot or cold and it's fine.
any temperature will do. Just it's fine.
I hit my knee on the table, everybody. I just got an injury recording. How?
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this is the No Name Music Cast first. Joy actually has had an injury during the recording.
It's me ranting about if I'm hot or cold, and I banged my knee on a table. All right.
Goodness me. Anyhow. I hope that wasn't too bad of an injury for you.
It was one of those ones, though, you know, like when you hit your funny bone or you hit your knee and it sends that sting, that tingly feeling. It's like that. All right, I lived. What's the next song, Tim?
Okay,
or the next album, I guess.
Yeah, so we're moving on to Teenage Dream, which was from 2010. And I'm going with the lead track, Teenage Dream. And the reason I'm going with that, once again, I think that's a great written pop song. But it was Teenage Dream, I believe, was the Left Shark dancing song.
Oh, I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. When he was
I forgot until you said it. Now, this album was produced by that Max Martin, right? And like that Max Martin, the guy who was like, so Max Martin, I'm pretty sure is the one who puts out all the pop hits from Sweden now. And he learned from that pop dude back in the early 90s or whatever. Yeah,
I'm just looking at the thing here. Yeah, that would be correct. And she's also worked with a production group called The Matrix. And the production group, The Matrix, they're responsible for a lot of Avril Lavigne's early stuff.
Interesting.
And it's funny that a lot of this songwriting and production does come out of Sweden. I've heard other acts come out of these Swedish productions, Swedish songwriting.
In all the modern day music, pop music, it's all this Max. His real name is like Carl Swedenborg, but like I watched a whole documentary on it. He goes by Max, and he was that one guy who died in the early 90s from Sweden that helped with the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC was like his mentor. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember his name. I want to say it was like Deco or something. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So, and once that guy passed away, this Max Martin kind of took over. And I mean, he did some of the Backstreet Boys at NSYNC too. He did Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears. I think he's worked with Adele. I mean, and he's known for being that one who produces pop art after pop art after pop song. Like he has whatever that algorithm is down to a T.
Yeah, it's like did you ever see that? I mean, it's not pop music, but did you see that thing that was going around a year or two ago? And it was like, these are all the country music hits, and someone had synced them all up. And then like the first, 30 seconds of every one of those hits was identical. It had the same amount of bars as an intro, the same amount of here, and then the vocal came in here, and then the guitar break came in here, and they were all just like all synced up and all identical. Yeah. It's like they have a template. Like when I edit this podcast, I have a template where I import the files into, all the levels are set, I make my edits, and I put the bit at the beginning, the bit at the end, and then you hit render, and there you go. And it's almost like that they have these templates set up. It's like, well, let's put this vocal in here, and then the guitar break goes there, and then the thing goes in there, and then...
We as humans just like those patterns. So you know who monopolized that when she became really famous was Lady Gaga. She admits that when she came out with Just Dance, do you know how long it took her to write that song, Tim? 10 minutes. She said she wrote what's the one, Bad Romance, 10 minutes. And it's funny because when she's in one of those carpool karaoke's with James Corden, he was like, so when you're writing the words down, you know how it goes, rah, rah, Roma, Roma, ma, gaga, ooh la la. He's like, did you physically write down rah, 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 and show it to the person and they think you're crazy? And she's like, well, first of all, I make the decisions. They don't. But second of all, it's romance. ooh la la gaga. That's what it's saying. It's romance, but it's the syllable spelled out. And so she was able to make that really fun rhythm just based off the rest of the words of the song.
Do you know what that's like? So when I was in the Guilty Party with Barry Browning, who is Lee Aaron's dad, we used to do Land of a Thousand Dances. You know the song, na, 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 that song.
I love that song.
He's an energetic and charismatic frontman and singer. Barry, he's a great frontman, especially in like a party band, function band context. Gotcha. But he struggles to remember lyrics. Some singers can put all the lyrics in their head and never have to worry about it. Barry's one of these people who needs that crutch of having the lyrics up. And these days he may have an iPad or some kind of tablet or something. But when I was playing with him, he had a book. And we used to do this whole thing of Land of a Thousand Dances where we get people on stage and then you bring it down and then you put the mic in their face and they go, no, 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 no. Mm-hmm. But he had the lyrics for that song and he had all the nahs written out. And it wasn't just like nah, 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 etc. Everyone was written out. And guy who I was in the band with, Jules, at the time, picked up on this. I'd never really noticed. And then when he wasn't looking, we looked at the nahs and sung it, and they were all completely correct.
Because by the syllable, because you would want to do, because that song goes da na 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 na. So I see how, because you would do na 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 na, like you would have to emphasize. That's kind of, I mean, Charlie, I've said many times, my husband does not know the lyrics to any song. Like he could hear it 1,000 times, and I'd be like, sometimes I'll be like, Wooly in the car, and I'll be like, what did you just say? What did you think that's saying? And I'm like, and then I'm the complete opposite, and like song lyrics stick in my brain like glue. Mm-hmm. So anyway.
But there we are. Back to Miss Perry. So another track from Teenage Dream, which I really enjoy, is California Girls. And that song, of course, has a cameo appearance from Snoop Dogg doing a little rap bit in the middle.
Because he's all about his California. So I love that. The video, once again, was iconic. Because, it's the Candyland thing. And she's walking around with all the different costumes and all that stuff. And then you've got Snoop Dogg, which is like the Candyland king kind of thing going on. His little throne.
And when I was last at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which was 5 or 6 years ago, they had Katy's outfit from that video at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That would have been such a fun. Well, that whole stage show for that album is like that. Like a lot of them were like candy food type things. She did like a whole thing with like candy themes, which was pretty cool. So if you've ever seen them live, and on that particular stage show, she used to do a version of Whitney Houston's "I Want to Dance with Somebody." Oh, wow. Which was really good. It was really good. It was really fun. It was upbeat, and they were all dressed as candy. But I'll find the video and post it on the Facebook. But that's the one I watched the documentary on. That's talking about earlier. I watched the whole thing behind the scenes on that one. But I would have, the person, whoever did all the stage clothes and all that stuff for that whole, it had to be really fun, honestly. I love whenever the little Girl Scout looking girls are walking by and they take a bite out of the gingerbread man, but he's like alive. And it's like, talking about the little girl like leans over, bites into the gingerbread man, but he's kind of alive. So he's like, what the heck? Sorry, that's just the scene I remember from the video.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, we should post that video because it is fun to watch. And just closing out the Teenage Dream album is the song Firework. Now, Firework is a great track, but also that was one of the tracks that she did at the Super Bowl halftime performance where she went up on like some kind of high wire type affair and then was round the edge of the stadium doing firework with like fireworks coming out the back of her launch pad spaceship type thing she had. Mm-hmm. And as she was doing it, all these fireworks were going off the top of the stadium.
I mean, that would be cool, whoever did the pyrotechnics. But I also remember, this is not related, that's also, remember how she opened it on the giant tiger lion thing for Roar?
I was coming on to Roar, in fact. Yeah.
Spoiler alert, everybody. Yeah, no, I remember. That was her. I liked her halftime show a lot, actually. Yep. Yeah. And then, like, I will say, though, Firework is another one that I would put. I think I heard it. Wow. I mean, that song had to be. Would you agree that that was probably one of her most played songs and they used it like everything?
Yeah, I mean, I think nearly all of the songs that I've mentioned so far are ones that you just. I mean, the record company must have invested a lot of money in her and the promotion because you couldn't escape this stuff. As I said, I don't really listen to top 40 radio at all. I don't seek this stuff out, particularly like this kind of music. But this stuff got through to me, and it was good enough that I decided, actually, Katie,
like
this is good music.
And if you're listening, Katy Perry, we'll have you on next week.
Well, she's not touring at the moment. She became a mother not that long ago.
Her and Orlando Bloom are hanging out at home.
Exactly. Her and Orlando are just chilling. I mean, if she's got
with the twins, or don't they have twins? No, it's just one.
I think they just have one kid.
Why did I think twins for a minute? But you're right, it's just one.
Yeah, if she's got
Daisy is her daughter's name.
Daisy Bloom.
I think. I'm pretty sure the first name is Daisy.
I mean, Daisy, I'm not judging. Daisy Bloom is fine.
I didn't even think about it. So, you know what that makes me think of? There's a Family Guy joke. And he's like, wait a second, Alicia Keys. She's a pianist. There's no way her last name is really Keys. It's like it dawned on him in Family Guy. He goes, wait, I want to be Johnny Guitar. I'm changing my name to Johnny Guitar.
Well, I know there's a guitarist called Johnny Guitar Watson, but that's not his real middle name.
Yeah, it was just funny because out of nowhere he's thinking, he's like, there's no way her last name is Keys. And she happened to become a piano player. She had to. And everybody's staring at him like, yes, this is a fake name. And
it's a rock and roll stage name. That's a well-trodden path.
Tim's going to change his name to Tim Guitar.
No, it'd be Knight.
Tim Knight.
Well, my middle name is Michael. I'm just saying, for real.
That's funny. I would laugh though if the next show I see just Tim Michael Knight - guitar. I want that to be your name.
I may have said this before, and this happened after the fact, and it was too late. So I became an American citizen a number of years ago, and when you become a citizen, you get a one-shot deal of changing your name for free, because otherwise you have to go through a lawyer or you have to go through a whole process, and there's money, and it's possible. People do it all the time, but there's a process you have to follow to do that if you want to do it. And when you become an American citizen, on the forms that you fill in when you go through that process, it allows you to change your name. And it comes back from those days of Ellis Island, where people would come from other countries and wanted to Americanize their names to fit in better with society or whatever, if that was deemed what was important at the time. And a lot of people did that. So it harks back to those days. So a number of years after I became an American citizen, I was just thinking about nothing in particular like I do. And I thought I could have given myself another middle name, and then I would have been Timothy Michael Knight O'Sullivan. And I could have done that for free. And it was just meant putting 5 letters on a form.
Tim wakes up at midnight and goes, wait a minute.
But it's too late.
Out of bed.
And I can't, well, I could do it now, but I mean, going through the hassle.
It's like a lot of work.
It's a lot of work for something that would entertain me a lot, but it's a lot of work, really.
And your HR department would have to update all your stuff, and we don't want to do that. So,
well, there we are. I don't want to.
Your legal middle name would change, so we'd have to do all the paperwork.
but anyhow, that was a thought I had, and I didn't actually do it. But if I'd have thought of it a number of years ago, I may have done that.
I just imagine like you at 3 a.m. coming out of like deep sleep and yelling that out loud. And Hannah's like, "What?"
I could have been Timothy Michael Knight.
What? She'd see her have a heart attack and fall out of bed. Lord, okay. What's the next album?
Okay, so we're moving away from Teenage Dream and we're moving on to Prism. Now, Prism came out in 2013, and this was a move away from the kind of classic. Well, we started off with One of the Boys, which was kind of a band rock type sound. Teenage Dream was more of a classic of the era pop sound. And in Prism of 2013, she was more embracing a kind of more of a dance EDM type thing. And it must be said that this album, I'd say this is where Katy lost me a bit, but I didn't feel the same connection to her music in Prism. I like a lot of the tracks on Prism, but I think she went further in this direction in albums after the fact. And as I said, the albums beyond this, outside of hearing a few tracks, I'm not super familiar with.
Well, if I'm being honest with you, I actually don't care for Dark Horse. I never cared for Dark Horse, and that's probably what the biggest hit off of this album.
Yeah, Dark Horse does have a great video.
It does, and it has a great sound. It kind of grew on me, but it was never one that I was that into. Like, I wouldn't have went out of my way to listen to Dark Horse.
Now, the interesting thing about Dark Horse as well, I think it was maybe Gangnam Style beat her to it, but it was one of the first videos to hit 1 billion views on YouTube. And, you know, regardless of whether you like the song or whether you like Katy Perry, to have a piece of art that you're involved with watched 1 billion times.
Well, in the Egypt kind of thing that they were going for, because she's obviously Cleopatra, like that play is pretty cool. And like, you know, it's talking about a dark horse, like I get it. Like it goes with the song, but it's also cool to watch. And I just remember, you know, she's got the big eye thing over her, and she's dressed as what I'm assuming is she's supposed to be Cleopatra.
Yeah. And then they bring her an offering of those Cheetos, the super red hot Cheetos, like a big bowl of those, because apparently she likes those. And if you look closely in the video, I think some of the Egyptian people standing around, one of them is wearing a WWF championship belt, and it's not like one of the proper repro ones that you can buy now that are just like the ones they have in the wrestlers have. It's like a Walmart grade plastic WWF belt, and it's upside down, so obviously you can't tell that's what it is, but that's exactly what it is.
That's exactly what it is, because she's got like those half cat, half people things around her at one point. I remember that. Yeah.
Well, she does have a cat called I think it's Katy Perry or something like that.
Katy Perry, yep.
Yeah. And there was some controversy with this video because I think something she was wearing around her neck was written in Arabic, and some folks found whatever it was in bad taste or something like that. Whatever it said wasn't deemed appropriate, so they had to go in digitally and erase it or make it say something else, or put a different logo on it.
And then Dark Horse is the one that the guy tried to claim copyright of, right? The song.
I think so, yeah.
Some random guy. I think it was thrown out, and nobody is like, here's just some random dude on YouTube that, like, what are the chances of Katy Perry ever knowing who this guy was type situation?
Exactly. I think it was an opportunist hoping for an out-of-court settlement.
Well, to be fair, I'm pretty sure it just got thrown out by the judge. Because it made no sense.
But mind you, there's been some court cases like that blurred lines. I mean, that and the Marvin Gaye song, they're vaguely similar, but I didn't hear that.
Okay, I did not hear it until someone pointed it out to me, because it's Never Gonna Give Up or whatever. That's the song. And I know what they're talking about. They're talking about that beat, right? That kind of, but that structural beat, I could find 10 other songs that have that same kind of, you know what I mean? That same tempo. So for me, I'm like, that's like half the upbeat kind of pop sound. I don't know. I didn't get that one either. Not even a little bit. It's not like My Sweet Lord versus the Martha and the Vandrell song or whatever.
It's like You're So Fine.
You're So Fine. Yes, that's what it was. Like, that's pretty obvious. Like, it's one, right? And then there's that one with Bittersweet Symphony. That's really obvious. I can't remember which song that was. And then, but for I'm with you. And the Marvin Gaye family, I hate to say this, I'm very sorry what I'm going to say. They seem to be very money hungry ever since he passed. There's a lot there to unpack.
Yeah, I think we spoke of before about Bob Marley, No Woman, No Cry, where it had a vanity writing credit of somebody who was running a soup kitchen. To be completely fair to it, the guy who has a co-writing credit on it didn't write the song at all. Bob Marley put a vanity writing credit on because he wanted to make sure this soup kitchen in Jamaica or wherever it was funded. So he figured this is going to be a big hit. This guy's going to get royalties and the soup kitchen's going to get money. Yeah. And then, like, the Marley family, many years after the fact, worked to undo that arrangement because, they just saw it as a cash grab, which is really sad.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but there was, like, if you go back and look at some of the court procedures and different things that happened after Marvin Gaye passed, some of it seemed very money hungry. Now, to be fair, there are a lot of people who say that song, and I hear it. If you play them side by side, I do hear it. But my problem is it's too close to too many other songs for me to make that that kind of deviation of like this is the deviation that this is the one that they copied. It's just too similar of a beat, especially when you get back to some of that old Motown sound type stuff.
Exactly. I don't hear it either. Anyhow, I've got a couple more songs from our friend Catherine Hudson. So let's just wrap up with Prism. As I said, this is a moderate dive into the work of Katy Perry. Anything past Prism, I'm not super familiar with, if I'm being completely honest with you. But this is my concession to contemporary pop music.
This is where Tim stands. All right, what's next?
Exactly. Well, we spoke about Raw, and I was going to go on to say that it was from the Super Bowl halftime show,
and I ruined it.
No, it's fine. But also, again, this one has a fabulous video.
Yeah, it does. Actually, that's one of her things she does well is her music videos. They're all very distinct.
Yeah, because this one she's in the jungle and there's like elephants and all kinds of animals. It's all going on.
Well, I mean, it is a song about roaring, so.
Exactly. And the lion that she comes in on at the Super Bowl halftime show is an amazing prop. And apparently it was built by a stage production company who makes all the props for Cirque du Soleil.
Oh, that makes sense, though. I see how that would because that would translate well in like a stadium type environment, too.
Yeah, because if you look because when you see it on TV, if you're not looking too hard, it looks like the lion is sort of moving its way into the stadium. But if you look super close, and having seen the behind the scenes type thing, there are people dressed in black suits moving the legs.
Oh,
but
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, it's very cleverly done, and it is. I wonder where that prop is because it's huge.
And they have to store it somewheres. Well, it's kind of like whenever you see the Lion King on Broadway, everything's done in like a puppet type thing. So like Zazu, the bird, is like is a puppeteer controlling him. And then the lions aren't puppets, but a lot of the other characters are. And there's the part where, I'm assuming you've watched The Lion King, Tim. Please tell me you've watched The Lion King.
I have never seen The Lion
King. Well, spoiler for Tim. That is... We're going to have to do some homework at some point. There's a part where the baby lion's, he's going to be king, but, the little lion's dad gets killed and he gets stamped. They do like a stampede on him on the Broadway show. It's like a big box almost. And like there's something underneath it. It's people underneath it. It's the same things going over and over and over like a wheel kind of mechanism to make the stampede, but there's people underneath it. Like they do some of that kind of thing in The Lion King on Broadway.
Oh, okay. So
that kind of idea that you had, that's done on stage shows a lot too.
I saw Aladdin at the cinema. Does that count for anything?
Yeah. I'll give you a half point for now. I do like the Aladdin. Have you ever watched Mulan? No. That one has the best music, though, Tim. If you watch any of them, go watch Mulan. It's funny and it has the best music.
Okay.
There's my advice. If you're going to watch one of them, watch Mulan. He's not going to watch any of them. But if he does, watch Mulan.
I might need to watch Smokey and the Bandit again. I mean, where am I going to have time to do that?
Oh, Lord. Ask Hannah which is her favorite, and I'll be curious to see if she says Mulan. Report back on your findings.
She likes the one that has Jermaine from Flight of the Conchords in it.
I don't know who... That's how you define the show? I don't know who Jermaine from Flight of the Conchords is.
Jermaine?
I mean, I know, I kind of vaguely remember it.
What was the Disney film that we was going to show at an aborted showing at our work that no one turned up to?
Moana?
Yes, that one. That's the one that she likes.
Okay. We're not getting into those times. Those were rough times. All right. What about Katy Perry too?
Okay, so I'm gonna close this moderate, vague dive into the world of Katy Perry with a song from Prism, which is Birthday. And I'll tell you why this is a good song. This is a pretty good song. And it was probably written because they figured that every time any kid had a birthday, they would play this birthday song. But I have the Prism World Tour video of this. They released a concert, Blu-ray DVD type thing, and I have that. And I think it was actually filmed in Australia, if I remember correctly. And they pull a kid out the audience who said it was their birthday. And Katy Perry blew this kid's mind by bringing him on stage and putting him in a birthday seat and gave them a pizza, and it was a whole thing. I just thought it was a very nice touch. And then, of course, she then sings the birthday song to the kid that they pull up.
You know, I like this song. I know it very well. I can even hear her little cute little birthday in the, the chorus or whatever. But you don't know that they're not actually talking about a birthday, right?
No, of course. I know that.
That's kind of weird if you're the kid's parents and you're singing the happy birthday song to him. I'm like, while it's cute and I like the song, and like if you just play like the chorus, it's fine. But the whole song's technically not about a birthday.
No, absolutely. But the little kid they pull out the audience who she spoils on stage, it doesn't read all the things into that.
It's kind of like the song Peacock a few albums back was not about a peacock.
No.
I love the song Peacock, though. Spoiler alert, I used to listen to that one all the time when I had that album.
There we go.
It's fun. It was a fun song, but it wasn't technically about a peacock.
There we go. And ladies and gentlemen, that's where we're going to leave this moderate dive into the world of Katy Perry. Before we wrap up, I'd just like to remind everyone that we have a bonus episode, which we're dropping on Christmas Eve, which is a little extra treat for all you No Name Music Cast fans out there. We had a lot of fun putting that together. So that will be in your feed on Christmas Eve. And I think that's about it. What do you say, Joy?
I think that's it. Bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Another day to come.